Jo, was geht?
Und X-Men, aber den habe ich gestummt, weil er möchte nicht, aber also man soll ihn nicht hören. Deswegen. Wir gucken uns die Black Lives Matter Talkshow an. Also die ist ja schon länger dran in Fortnite. Und wir gucken uns die heute zum ersten Mal jetzt an. Einfach weil es mal ein bisschen interessant ist, über das Thema hier jetzt zu wissen, über Black Lives Matter und so weiter. Es startet in 10 Sekunden, wie ihr seht. Ich werde einfach meinen Mund mal halten und könnt ihr euch den ganzen hier geben.
Die Bühne sieht geil aus, Digga.
Ja, es tut mir leid, dass ich die letzten Tage übrigens inaktiv bin. Ich weiß nicht, was ich hochladen soll. Ich habe
Oh,
vorproduzierte Videos.
oh.
Oh, es fängt an.
Okay, look now, look how they running. They beating white people down just to show us what's coming, or to show us we nothing, or to show us we only welcome when singing or balling. You shut up and dribble. Word, brought, low.
Hey everybody, I'm Carrie Champion. Welcome to We the People. So today we are having a very candid conversation with athletes and artists who want to make sure that you use your voice to vote. Voting is your voice. So we have so many different issues that have happened.
Ich sehe keinen Untertitel. Siehst du einen?
Ja, so I'm looking forward to these conversations. I think you'll be educated.
Ich muss das anmachen.
But most importantly informed. We have morethanavote.org, whenweallvote.org, and Fair Fight. As we try to change our future. There's no way that we can talk about hip-hop or even the fact that we want to talk about activism, black voter suppression, without bringing in this guy straight from Port Arthur, Texas. We are talking about Bumby. He is an activist, a scholar, and an all-around gentleman. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. Bun, I don't want to start heavy, but I guess I have to, because that's where we are in the world today. It's heavy as hell. And when you think about what needs to happen in this country in terms of change, what's the first thing that you think of?
Equality. That's pretty much the first thing that comes to mind, right? Black people need to be seen as equals in this world. You know, we had to fight just to be recognized as a full citizen in this country and not 3/5.
The world is now seeing what we've known for so long in the culture and in the community. The one way that we can fight is obviously voting. Talk to me about.
Ich muss X-Men auch mal einmal stumm, weil ich höre alles doppelt.
One vote doesn't matter and that voting doesn't make a difference. If that's true, why do they work so hard to suppress the black vote? Because they understand the power of the vote. And so it's time that black people collectively also understand the power of their vote. And not just on a national level, because a lot of times we only have this conversation every 4 years. People need to be very much involved in their local politics. They need to understand who their elected officials are, where they stand on issues that affect you. And you need to use your vote to either support the ones that care about you and your condition, or to elect people who do. A newer initiative that we're dealing with is educating felons, right? So in the state of Texas, if you're a felon, right, if you've been to jail or to prison, but you're no longer on probation or parole, you have the right to register to vote. Another thing that was just brought to my attention is an initiative called Orange, which is happening not just in Houston, but all over the country. If you're in jail currently during pretrial, but you have not been convicted, like you're still in jail waiting for your day in court, you are still eligible to vote.
And you said something so key. They work so hard to hope that we stay uninformed, but more importantly, to suppress the black vote. If you could do one thing with this message that we're trying to send today about how important voting is, what type of images would you like our people to understand and see when they go to these polls and vote, or when they cast their ballots?
I think the images that we've all seen, you know what I'm saying, for decades in this country, if not centuries in this country, we've seen black people oppressed, we've seen black people attacked. So every time you look back and you see those old black and white images of people of color being attacked by dogs and people of color being sprayed with hoses, that's what they were fighting for. Back then, they were just fighting for a chance to vote. People like Martin Luther King Jr., people like Malcolm X, these people died to help us be in a position to have the power that we have now, which is to be able to cast a vote and make a decision about the people that have control over our lives. So, I mean, if
Das ist aber nicht live,
your own community need a reason to
Fast
vote,
live.
look at a person like George
Das,
Floyd.
also,
If the people in your city are not open to police reform,
Hä,
are
meinst du
not
jetzt,
open
das
to having
ist
a conversation about
dieses
defunding the
Event
police,
hier?
are not
Doch,
open
das ist
to
live.
issues concerning
Herzlich
economic
willkommen in meinem
equality,
Stream.
judicial equality, and racial equality, right? If they're scared to say Black Lives Matter, you have the power to put
Black
people in
Lives
those
Matter.
positions
Black
who do
Lives
believe
Matter.
that Black Lives Matter, who do believe in racial equality, economic equality, judicial equality,
That's
right? Who see us as human beings. And if the people in your community don't feel that way, vote them out. It's that simple. It's just vote them out. We don't have enough time to sit around and hope that people change
guck
their
einfach
minds.
von hier,
But
Digga.
you point out something so important. We have the power,
Ja, das sieht
and that is in our vote, and that is with our voice, and that's how we use our voice. I think of where we are right now. People say this is a particular
so
moment,
richtig.
but it is a movement, not just a moment. It is a movement. Why, in your opinion, was it? Why was that the chosen brutality for people to say, "Oh my God, Black people are still oppressed in this country," and it is not fair.
I think it's twofold, Carrie. In so many different encounters between people of color and the police, there simply is no proof of what happened in the interaction. And so what happens is in a court of law, it tends to lean towards the policeman's point of view, right? In this case, we saw very clearly what happened. I think the other thing is due to the fact that everyone was at home, basically, during this time period in relation to the coronavirus, you couldn't avoid it, right? It was on every television station. It was on every social media
Wie lange
platform.
geht das jetzt?
Everywhere you turn, you were constantly hit upside the
Ist es
head
jetzt
with this
langweilig?
message. You see
Nein,
in the
aber wie
interaction
lange
that
geht es
this
denn
man
noch?
did nothing to deserve
Kann 5 Minuten
what
dauern
happened.
oder 10.
Like so well said, because if you
Ja,
think
gut.
Es ist
about
gerade
it,
5.
in the grand
Minuten.
scheme of things,
Guten
it wasn't
Hunger,
worth it.
Yoshi.
He didn't have to lose his life. I think
Ist
that
ja Milch,
you
also
brought on, you
guten
touched on
Hunger,
something
ist ja
that a lot of
zuerst.
people talk about, and that is now
Guckt
defunding
eigentlich
the police. That
Bockwurst
has
noch
been
seine
such a huge
Streams und so?
conversation, but there's so many
Bockwurst, der
misconceptions
erste, der
around
meine
defunding and
Dings.
dismantling. If you will,
Yoshi
educate
schrieb,
the
es
audience.
dauert eine
All
halbe
right, so
Stunde.
most people, when they hear the term defund the
Oha.
police, they tend to think of, oh,
Klar, es
they're going
ist
to
ein
take away our police
intensives
department.
Thema,
Nothing could be
sag ich mal.
further
Es ist ja,
from the point.
ja.
Defunding the police means that in certain communities, even
Ich frag das ein bisschen ab, dass es Deutsch
we
ist,
had
eigentlich
over $1
Deutsch ist.
billion allocated to our police force. Now, what is that money being used for? Some of that money tends to be allocated towards riot shields, right? Pepper spray, right? That kind of thing. That's only used
Ich finde
against
es
the
halt
people
schon ein
that
bisschen krass,
fund
so,
this budget, right? So why would the
man
people want to
also so
supply the police with the
umzubringen,
means to oppress them?
obwohl
If
er
the
sagt,
police are
dass
concerned
ich
about the
mehr
situation
atmen kann.
in certain communities with a higher crime rate, well, higher crime rates tend to happen in communities where there's not employment opportunities, right? There's not a lot of social services, and people are going to do what they need to do to take care of themselves and their families. When
Ach
the
so,
community has
Yoshi.
more opportunities for employment,
Yoshi
more
sagt gerade,
opportunities
dass,
for upward mobility, then they tend
das
to be
nicht
a
genau
less of a
stimmt.
strain on the
Er
government.
weiß gar
They
nicht
tend to
genau,
have a
was
lower
geht.
crime rate, and because of that,
Okay,
we'll have less
gut.
need for the police in those communities.
Hi
You
Leute
are
und herzlich
passionate
willkommen
about
in
so
meinem Stream.
many different
Übrigens,
things
man,
wer
ich,
guckt noch zu?
ich grüße gerade jeden, der hier reinkommt, der
Well,
sich
right
das
now,
anguckt.
obviously, being a
Und
part of more than a vote is essential. We're dealing with primaries in this country right now, and we just want to educate people. We want to inform people because people are tired, they're angry, they're concerned, and they want information and they want action. And so we want to make sure that we give them the right information and lead them in
falls
the
euch
right
zu schnell ist,
direction. And we
pausiert
thank
einfach.
the people that do not look like us for standing with us right now, because it's very
Wie
important
pausieren?
that people
Ach so.
who aren't black be involved, because
Lost.
black people could have gotten rid of racism.
Ja,
We would have done it
Yoshi.
hundreds of years ago. And so I'm trying to use my voice and my
Ja,
platform
egal,
just to
Yoshi.
let people know that if they feel like I do, there's a number of places they can go
Danke auf
to
jeden Fall
enact
an
change in
alle
their community.
3
People need to
Zuschauer, die
know
mir gerade
about how
zuschauen.
their city council runs. They need to know that they
Oh,
have
hast du nicht
the
gesagt, wir
ability to
gucken
speak
nochmal 3
when city
zu?
council meets, to let them know that that's
Mindestens?
not the way that they
Ja.
feel their city needs to be run. Those are not the places that they feel the money
Ich
in
hab
their
dir gesagt,
community needs to be
Leute.
allocated.
Ja, ja.
But even a step further, they can run for office in their local
Ich
community.
find's so
They
krass,
can
es
run
ist
for
1 Uhr 8
positions.
und
Like,
gucken
people
schon
act
ein Video,
like
also
they're
den
somebody
Stream.
else. If you're upset, it's not hard to get on the school board. It's not hard to be a part of the
Kennst
city
du Yoshi in
council. It
echt?
really isn't. And depending on how small your
Ja,
town
klar.
is, you could be a mayor. It's the
Ja,
power
ja.
is with the people, and we need
Ich
to
gleich
just know
werde ich
that that's
sowas von
happening.
gemobbt im
Absolutely. And
Chat.
it's always been with the people. You know,
Ja.
you look at Trayvon Martin's mother, Sabrina Fulton.
Kann ja
right?
Spaß mal
She felt
aufhören.
that there was a system of racism and a system of oppression that led to her
Der
son's
mobbt
death.
mich immer.
Alter, wieso
What did
springt
she
denn
do?
der
She ran for city
Spasti?
council, and she was elected to city council. Our own former president, 44, Barack Obama,
Barack
right,
Obama.
started in the community as an activist, ran for an elected position,
Och,
became
Digga, jetzt
senator,
fliegt der auch
ran
noch
for
durchs
another
Bild,
elected
Mann.
position, and became president of the United States. So don't think that you can't make a difference. You know what I'm
Und
saying? You
noch
don't
einer.
need a lot of money. You don't need a lot of power. Your voice is enough to make a difference.
Hey man,
Da
I
steht
feel
jetzt
like I need to go
automatisch
out and
hier,
run
ist
for
das noch
something. You
nicht.
gave me a rousing speech there, sir. I'd be remiss if I didn't answer this. When I talk to my brothers, I have to ask you, as a black man,
Jetzt
how are
anders
you?
auf den Berg und guck mal das von der Zipline
I'm
an,
good.
Alter.
I'm good. I have a
Mann,
very
warum ist
strong
der ein Typ
relationship
eigentlich die
with
ganze Zeit
God,
so dumm
so
und
prayer
fliegt durchs
definitely works
Bild?
for me. I have
Ja.
children and grandchildren who are watching me, who are encouraged by what I do, and they're proud of me right now, you know, and that's really what matters, you know.
Leute, schreibt
The
mal in den
change starts at
Kommentaren,
home,
wie ihr zu
you know, so
Black
as
Lives
long as
Matter
you have a
steht.
support system that believes in what you're doing and supports you in what you're doing, you have everything you need to go out there and fight the good fight. And for those
Shit, mein
that
Handy
don't,
ist
there's a
ausgegangen.
community
Schreibt
of
mal in die
people here to
Kommentare,
help
ich
you.
lese.
So you can go to
Du kannst
places
es
like
schwer
morethanavote.org. There are many different places
Oh,
that will
Digga.
encourage you, inform you, and there will
Sorry.
continue groups of people that feel like you that are ready to take action. So no one has to go about this alone if they
Leute, ich
want
gucke
to
mir
do it.
gleich die Kommentare an. Ich muss gerade mein Handy
Wissen
anstecken.
deine Zuschauer eigentlich immer, wer ich noch bin? Also deine 3?
Now that we're in our movement, not just this moment.
Keine Ahnung.
Bumby, it has been an
Ich habe lange nicht
education,
mehr
always
was
a
mit dir
pleasure.
gemacht.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Keep
Mhm,
fighting.
ich weiß,
Keep
deswegen
up
ja.
the good fight.
Oha. War's das?
Nein, nein.
Yeah, look.
Das sind, glaube ich,
So our next
5
guest, I have to
Leute,
admit,
die
I'm a
die
fan, but there are
interviewen.
so many different people that we could talk to, and I thought it was so imperative that we speak with her. You know her
Das
as
könnte
well,
locker wirklich
on
eine
the
halbe Stunde
huge,
dauern.
successful show Insecure, HBO's Insecure. She also has a comedy special highlighting her Nigerian roots, and she's an amazing podcaster. Let's welcome
Hey,
Bumby
halbe Stunde lang wird mein Stream unterhalten,
You
ohne
have
dass ich
such
was
a
mache.
beautiful way of
Leute, ich
making
bin
things
ehrlich.
funny, giving us our
Hey Leute, ich bin kurz weg.
right? The humor and the healing. You bring
Nein, ich gucke mir das ja
all
selber
that,
an. Ich habe ja
to your space.
wohl selber
And
ausgedacht,
right
hey,
now,
interessiert mich,
as you
gucke
look
ich mal
across
an.
this country and how everyone is so broken,
Kann man
it's
sich
so
sogar
sad,
umkleiden.
it's not social injustice,
Dann nehme
it's
ich jetzt mal einen
pandemic,
weißen
it's
Skin.
depression, it's unemployment. The list goes
Oder?
on and
Nee,
on.
ich nehme noch einen
How are
Schwertwaffen.
you doing, quite frankly?
You know, I
Ich
am
hab gar keine schwarze mehr.
I'm rediscovering self in a way that
Iconic
that
ist auch
is
nicht schwarz.
hard but necessary. That will lead
Soll
to
es nicht
ultimate
rassistisch
joy. I know it
rüberkommen, aber
sounds
werden jetzt
like a
nur
lot, but
etwas
no,
Dunkelhäutige
I think
gefragt über dieses Thema?
I personally think that God put all of us on a global timeout. Like we just,
Ich meine, man
America has
sollte
to
die
be as good as other
Allgemeinheit mal
people when it comes to
fragen,
timeouts,
so
because
wie
everyone
die darüber
else is out
stehen.
playing at recess.
Ey,
And we
Styler,
just
wie
sit in
findest
the
du meinen
principal's
schwarzen
office
Skin?
hoping and wishing we could come out.
Das bin
But
ich hier.
I think that if we settle into the timeout and
Hey
really learn
Leute
the
und
lesson
herzlich
that we're
willkommen
supposed to
in
learn
meinem
from the
Stream.
season, I think we'll
Hey
emerge
Leute,
Leute.
herzlich
We'll
willkommen in
learn how to
Styler
play
Stream.
well with others in more ways than one.
Viele Leute, die mir zugucken.
And so
Interessant.
personally for me, I'm taking this time to learn me in a new way. I feel like I'm being ushered into a new season,
Wow.
and I'm
Voll
getting
schlau.
still, because sometimes the busy confounds the work that we're supposed to actually
Alter,
do.
kann ich Spaß
You
mal
know, we're busy
aufhören
doing
jetzt?
other stuff, but we got work
Die da
that we need to
rumfliegen.
do on the inside. And
Mhm.
I'm leaning into it. I'm like, dang, I thought I was gonna be able to rest like everybody else. And
Ja,
God's like,
geliebt.
nah, we got work to do.
You know what? And I think that's what everybody is saying about 2020. It's demanding that we be better. And you said it's a global
2020 hat er übelst
Yeah,
reingeschissen,
it's like
Mann.
everyone sit down.
Ganz
Sit
ehrlich,
down, be
2020 war der
humble,
größte
to quote the
Rotz.
great prophet Kendrick Lamar. But like no, seriously, sit down and let's reevaluate some things. Let us
Noch einer
unearth
ist
and
lieb.
shake up the things that we have been trying to hide within ourselves, within our nation. I think America is going through an unraveling right now, a much needed, a much necessary one, and I think all eyes on us, right? There is no, oh, I was on the subway for an hour, so I didn't miss that thing that happened. No, everybody was home. Everybody, was watching when George Floyd died, and everybody, no one could hide it. Everyone was watching when Amy
Ich höre
Cooper
einfach zu
called
und
the
lies den
cops. Like,
Untertitel
this
nicht,
is
Digga.
a time where it's like, oh, we
Kann man
can't
machen.
pretend it away. We can't excuse it away. No. It's a global timeout. Sit down, watch, and let's learn. And globally, it's like, hey, we were going business as usual, but it ain't usual.
Everyone had to pay attention to George Floyd. How is that
Na, mein Internet kackt ein bisschen ab. Bitte
Nein,
leck
ich
ihr
habe ihn
Internet.
I
runtergedrückt.
think, well, one, we're not minorities, Carrie. You already know it.
Was ist
It's like
vorbei jetzt?
these labels that they put on us.
Nee, mein
It's like
Internet
it's like
spackt ein
it's like
bisschen
the same
rum.
way of saying like black on black violence.
Bist du das?
Also, there's no white on white
Was?
violence.
Ja, ja,
It's
ich hier voll.
branding.
Würdest du
Right?
sagen,
It's
das ist
branding.
Kannibalismus?
It's like
Was?
white people kill white people every
Guck.
single day. So no, there is no black on black violence. And if you say
Wait,
black on black
ich guck
violence, well
grad
then let's brand white on white violence. Like I watch
Würdest du sagen, die beiden Bananen hier sind ein
Too
bisschen...
many of us.
Könnte sein.
So, you know, I just
So wie es
even,
aussieht,
like,
hat
to
deren...
answer your question, what does that do?
Der
I
hat
think what everyone
deren
expected is
Schale
what has happened in
aufgegessen
the past when the
oder
world was still
genommen.
open,
Oh,
right?
oh,
In that,
oh.
okay, you had everyone
Knie dich mal hin.
from Trayvon Martin
Bitte.
to Cecilio to Sandra Bland. You had all of these
Danke.
lives lost, and black people made
Nein,
some
mein
Jetzt
noise.
Internet kackt so ab, dass es
You
nicht
know, we
reicht zu
rioted.
streamen.
We
Bitte.
got
Ist
out
dein
in the
Stream
street.
abgekackt?
We started the Black Lives Matter
Nein, aber
movement,
mir
all of
wird
those
gerade
things. And then
Dings,
after,
dass meine
and then white
Qualität
people
nicht so
kind of
gut
just
ist
like,
zum
oh, let's give them
Streamen.
something, or and then it's just like, is it over? It's like Oscars
Ey,
so
ich hab
black.
die
It's
72 Abonnenten
we gave
geknackt.
some Oscars. Are we good now? Like, are we even? You know, and it's now it's just like, oh no. This is not about like a band-aid. It's like, yo, we might have to amputate the leg a little bit, but it's all right because we're gonna by amputating the leg, we're gonna save the
Danke
life.
Leute an die
And so I think that's what
72
happening now. Like
Abonnenten.
America is realizing like, oh, black people aren't just making a little bit of
Oh,
noise. Like,
Last. Jetzt hast du
the protests are
73.
still
Ich hab
out.
dir nicht gefolgt,
The
Mann. Sorry.
conversations are still being had. The change is still being demanded. And I think they're seeing, oh, this is not
Yay.
Fett
going
sagt,
away.
was
And
geht,
no, it's
deine
not, because
Mom,
we
du
need systematic change.
What a beautiful way
Deine Mom, du
to
Keck.
explore
Digga,
what is
das
happening
bin
and
ich.
describe our
Digga,
country.
das
We might
bin
have
ich.
to amputate the leg,
Spaß
but that's the
sind.
und
Ah,
herzlich
Digga, ich
willkommen
würde
im
dem
Stream.
anders Moderator wegnehmen.
That's
Huch.
beautiful, Yvonne.
Das
And
ist
to
ein
that end, I
Freund
have
von
to
mir.
ask you this, because the way that we do that, we use
Ja, Mann,
our
ich weiß.
voice. And our voice right now in this
Mit
world,
dem
in this
trotzdem.
country, is our vote.
Wir hatten gerade
Sein
Everyone
Ding.
Zuschauer.
talks about voting and how important it is, but I
Ja,
feel like
wegen
more
mir,
than ever
Mann.
we
Ich
understand
bin
that
auch
it's not
dabei.
just about voting every 4 years for the man in office. It's about your local elections. It's about the mayor. It is about the district
Hast du
attorney,
gesehen?
people who have the
Die
power
rechts
to
hat einfach
bring
die Augen
charges against
verdreht.
police if police brutality is an issue in your community. If you care
Wo?
about your school district, you can run for the school board. I ask this of you, right? Your
Wer hat die
parents
Augen verdreht?
are from Nigeria.
Die
You
rechts,
are
die
Nigerian.
interviewt
You talk
wird.
about that very lovingly.
Ja,
What is
moin, die
voting
chillt
mean
einfach mit
for you?
AirPods los.
You know, I
Digga,
think
sicher das.
voting is power. I remember,
Lul,
you know,
stimmt.
I became a naturalized citizen.
Gib mal ab.
Gold, weiße AirPods, was?
Oh mein Gott, bist du rassistisch.
So ein Witz, Mann.
And just even that power of like we are American citizens and all the access that we have by being citizens, one of those.
Das ist auch nicht rassistisch gegen, aber gibt's schwarze AirPods?
It's a big deal. It's a big deal because not
Nein,
only are
glaub nicht,
we
nein.
do we have the opportunity
Wieso?
to be in this country, but now we can be
Keine
of
Ahnung.
the country. We
Ich
can
glaube,
be
ein schwarzes Handy auch besser
we can be
aus.
of the rules. We can be of what
Ich finde auch eine
is
schwarze
forward.
Handyhülle besser,
But
bin
I
ich
think
ehrlich.
going back to your
Soll jetzt auch
earlier
nichts mit
comment about,
Dunkelhäutigen zu tun haben.
just the setup of
Nur wieso landet der denn da oben drauf, Digga? Die ganze Zeit werden mir diese scheiß Pfeile angezeigt.
Ja.
or whatever it is, and I'm not putting teachers on blast. I
Ach,
think
fick
they're doing
euch.
a phenomenal
Ich
job.
glaube,
But for
X-Men
some
ehrlich.
unterhält sich gerade mit sich
we do
selbst.
not, and give them all the raises. I know too many parents who are like, I might, this child of
Oh
mine,
mein-
I do love them, but hey,
Ich habe X-Men aus, doppelt, also jetzt habe ich ihn gestimmt.
where can I drop
Wer nimmt
the
mir mein
ball?
Kind ab? Ah ja.
I do think that there is a disservice done because, again, when we talk about them, to your point, we talk about every 4 years. It's important to vote for the presidency. We don't realize.
Ganz ehrlich,
Oh,
wenn
snap,
die einen auf den
we
machen, dann mache ich
actually
auch einen
vote
auf den, Digga.
about,
Hi.
like, how much our library
Oh,
gets.
nee.
It's like small things like that, but they make a big difference.
When you think of voter suppression in this country,
Ich
what does it
liege
look
hier
like?
hinten in mein Bett.
It's the system.
Und guck
When
mir
we
das
talk
einfach
about
an, das
voter
ist
suppression,
ganz
we also talk about
gechippt.
systematic racism, right? It's all the systems that set up. And we
Nee, okay, ich hör auf.
normalize, okay, maybe your job will give you a half day, or maybe, you know, you'll be able to get this luxury. It shouldn't be a luxury. It should be built into the system. It should be built into
Fuck
the
dich
fabric
das
of
ab.
how we vote. But maybe you'll be able to get this luxury in order to enable you to go vote. Think about everything.
Mann, tu deinen ganzen Körper in meine, von meiner Kamera weg.
Marginalized,
Nö.
black person has to endure a day. So in a day, you need to get to work. If something happens to your
Ich
car,
seh-
if something happens to your
ich
child
jetzt grad
care, if
nicht.
something happens to, there's so many
Echt nicht?
factors along the way that can send you into
Ja.
a tailspin.
Hand
as
weg.
an American, and then you add on as
Ja.
a person of color.
Ich hasse dich.
If you're just trying to
Oha, ey, das ist
and
nicht
you don't
jugendfrei.
have to go through all of these hurdles and hoops in your everyday
Na?
life,
Ich zoome jetzt
Na?
einfach ran.
one day when your voice really is
Na?
supposed to matter the most in the
Na?
country, but then you also see all the times
Na?
you tried to have your
So, ich
voice
habe jetzt einen
heard,
Fokus drin.
and then
Nö, ich
it's
habe jetzt einen
been
Fokus drin.
shut down, repressed, told
Echt, wie
against
geht
you.
das? Also wie kann man Fokus
And then
reinmachen?
you're kind of like,
Bei mir geht's mit
what's the
Viereck.
point?
How do we keep?
Oh, das ist ja eine informative Information. Ich drücke auch gerade Viereck, es klappt nicht.
How do we, as a people, stay hopeful? How do we believe in the promise that these quote-unquote forefathers have
Bei
given
uns
us?
gibt es kein Viereck, Digga, bei uns gibt's O. Bei O passiert nichts.
By default,
Alter, wie lacht die denn?
like hope is infused in our DNA. Like if we haven't been broken now,
Reicht doch jetzt.
be it through slavery,
Ja,
through
sorry.
Give it to me.
through
Give it to me.
Ah ja, die Banane ist innen drin einfach gar nichts. Muss los.
you know, I mean, look,
Ja, moin.
the history of black people in this country is at one point we were 3/5 people.
Wie sieht mir das von innen aus?
That's it.
Ja, moin,
That
das.
was a written law. And look at us now. We are whole. We are black girl magic. We are black boy joy. We are, you know what I'm saying? And what I think about in terms of giving us hope, right?
Black Lives Matter.
We're making a lot
Black
of people
Lives
nervous right now.
Matter. Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter.
Dang, we put all
Bro,
these
stimmt es
obstacles
gleich.
in their way, and these
Bro,
jokers
nee.
are resilient. But that should give us hope. That should give us hope that like we can't stop, won't stop.
Ich
I
wechsle
mean,
nochmal
I
mein
went to the
Skin.
school of Diddy. You know what I'm saying? Hashtag. Harlem
Party
Shake.
startet in 30 Minuten. Was?
Welche Party, hä?
And I think that's
Party startet in 30 Minuten, steht da oben bei mir.
We can't
Aber welche
stop marching and
Party?
we won't stop marching.
Was
We
für eine
can't
Party,
stop
Digga?
marching
Müssen
and
wir
we
jetzt bis
won't
2
stop
Uhr hier drinnen bleiben, oder?
To that end, because you led me directly there, I've been asking everyone who's appeared on this
Wait, wir
platform,
haben
what
jetzt schon
does
gleich halb, ne?
activism look like? And I feel
Ja,
like back
in
in the
9
day,
Minuten.
we had an idea. Yes, it is marching. Yes, it is protesting. Yes, it is
Ah, welche
speaking out against things that we feel are not right
bin
or
offen.
unjust. But talk to me about what activism looks like for Ivano.
Was für eine Party, Digga? Ich leuchte auf jeden Fall jetzt. Oh mein
activism is
Gott.
that it has many faces.
Hör, es geht einfach weg.
You're gonna have the people
Bei
on
mir
the
war's
front
gerade
lines.
weg.
Like, you know what? Martin Luther King marched, but there were a lot
Oh,
of women
Digga.
who were in the homes like, hey, BT Dubs, when they come
Na,
back,
was
this
geht?
is how we
Ich mache
support
ja eine
all the
Comedy-Show
people
heute.
marching on the front lines, and we're gonna be here doing what we know to do best here. And you know what?
Fritz geht um die Ecke, was fehlt?
So that we need to,
Get
now we
it?
need to be in community, you know, getting money or whatever it is. So it's like everybody has a position to play, and so play your position like a shortstop, bruh. So whoever you are and whatever you do, play your position. So
Oh, weg.
activism could look like, you know what? I'm not the one that's
Ach,
built
Junge,
to be on the front line, but you know what? My pockets go deep, so I'm gonna support the people.
Tu den
on the front line.
Oberkörper
You
weg,
know, I'm a
bitte.
comedian. Black joy is a phenomenon.
Guck mal.
There's always a
Ja,
Siehst du, siehst du
jetzt
das?
sehe ich schon dein Schild. Ich sehe nur dein Schild.
have the platform to do something. Why aren't you
Ja, geh nicht
speaking
weiter
out?
weg
I'm
von
not
der
a
Kamera.
believer
Doch,
in
geh
thinking
weiter
that
weg
it's
von der Kamera.
mandatory. Like you said, everyone can
So,
be an
geht es so?
activist and be
Ich
activated
sehe
in
gar
different
nichts von dir,
ways.
zum Glück.
Talk to me about the connection.
Geh
Talk
weg.
to me about the marginalization in your world and how you feel like
Ich sehe nur deinen
Alter,
Arm
it inspires you
und
to
dein
say more
Schild.
and use your platform
Wer,
to
du
do
gehst weiter nach rechts.
Beneath the
Hör auf.
surface of what we do, like Nietzsche Nash says, it's the,
Das ist links.
the who, right? The who
Scheiße.
is the person who's going to be like, hey, let me
Gehst
call
voll in
this,
die falsche
let me call
Richtung.
this out. Either line racism in terms of
Haha, jetzt sehe ich dich zum Glück nicht.
ways that we can be better, in terms of ways that we
fick
can
dich.
actually be more uplifting to the community that
Wenn du jetzt über mir
Dann
springst,
passt halt
ne?
so.
Before
Wenn
I
jetzt
let you
über
go,
mir springst, bist du,
talk
glaube
to
ich,
me
voll in
about
meine
the
Kamera.
urgency, in your opinion, for people
Wenn du,
Junge,
wenn ich
Mama.
was?
our people to get out and vote this coming election.
Jetzt bist du
Yeah,
voll in meine
I mean,
Kamera.
God,
Geil.
Mehr
So
nach
bleib
rechts,
ich.
mehr nach rechts.
nein.
Also von mir aus.
Wieso sagst du mir das eigentlich?
Mach mal nach links, geh mal nach links. Links, links, links. Genau. Jetzt bist du mitten in meiner Kamera. Guck mal, mein Stream. Ey. Guck
Oh,
mal,
warte, 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 ja. Warte. Mein Handy ist auch schon
Das sieht so
runtergekommen.
richtig weird aus, wie du gerade stehst.
Warte. Ja, warte. Bin nicht da. So.
We have to vote for upward mobility. We have to vote for equality in a way that is long lasting. And if we succeeded before, we can do it again. We talk about the whole,
Jetzt.
this is the time.
Das ist halt nur dein
This is not
Rücken.
the time to to give up. This is not the time to pretend away that we
Was
haven't
versuchst
made
du?
progress. We have.
Dreh
There's
dich mal
still
um,
work
vielleicht
that
ist mal
needs to
dein
be done.
Gesicht.
And you know what?
Jo,
We're
Warte,
still
warte,
have to
warte.
get to a point where we pass
What the
the
fuck,
baton
wie
to our
siehst du innen
children and our
aus?
children's children. But we still have work to do now for
Oha.
that generation.
Machst du etwa einen
You are
Arschgucker?
everything. You are Molly, but you're
Nein,
not Molly.
du
I
hast dich
love
gerade
you
von
so much
innen
as Molly
gezeigt.
on HBO's Insecure. You are an amazing podcaster, Jesus and Jola. Shout out to Lovey. And then we also
Geh
have
doch einfach
movies. Like
weg,
you, the world, you're
bitte.
a model, a cover model. Also, wait, don't let me forget,
Du
you're
Retard,
hugely
ganz ehrlich.
successful, stand-up comedy special on HBO. Girl, you're doing it all. And I am so grateful. You're truly the dream, not just the American dream. You're the black girl, brown
Guck
girl.
mal, du kannst doch was sehen.
Immigrant dream, everything. You're a beautiful, beautiful soul. I really, really mean it.
Hä? Was mache ich denn?
Yvonne Orgy, ladies and gentlemen, nothing but the
Ach
best
so.
and excellence personified. Thank you so much, my friend.
I love you so much, Mama. Mwah.
Oh, zu Ende? Nee, der nicht.
Nein, es kommt noch einer.
Yeah.
Es kommen noch 3 oder so.
So Atlanta has been one of the hotbeds in terms of political unrest and social injustice.
Ich will jetzt nichts sagen, aber ich habe keinen Bock mehr.
And we've also seen so much come from that city, including one of our very own founding fathers of the civil rights movement, and that's Martin Luther King
Ich
Jr.
nut
But
mich.
right now, we want to welcome in someone who has used his
Nein, nein.
platform. Russ,
Weil-
I'm not going to fan out and tell you what are some of my favorite
Ich mag
songs
das
were.
nicht, wenn man sich mutet,
We're
bitte.
going to get to the topic at hand. So
Amazing.
we got to talk about, recently you did an interview where you shared your outlook on culture and music, and you also were very candid about the fact that you have a privilege and that it's necessary for you to give back. Tell everybody about what that means.
As like it's
Health.
very obvious, I'm white and I'm in black
Health.
culture and I'm benefiting financially off of it. So I feel like if
Geh
you're a white
extra auf den
person
Piss, aber nicht
financially
mir.
benefiting off of black
Ich
culture,
schwöre, mein
you have to
Junge.
put finances back into black culture. It's just that simple. The
Man,
screenshots
du
with your
Retard,
feelings, it
geh.
just comes off like fake empathy because it comes off very dismissive and very oh, that sucks for y'all. But
Ja, wenn
anyway,
man keinen
back to what
Kopf
I
da
was
unten
doing.
nur sieht.
Have you felt that way always, or is it now because of the time of where we are in this country?
I've always had the feeling. I think now it's just obviously elevated. It's a new level, and there's new, it's to the point now where you can't. First of all, you can't not say anything. Second of all, though, I just think saying something isn't enough anymore. I think, if you have the ability to put money back into a culture that you're financially benefiting from, you have the ability to, you should.
It's interesting that you talk about it in that way because some people do believe that silence is the best way to go because it's hard to talk race, especially if you're white and you're in the black culture. People just feel as if they can't
glaubst,
talk about it.
du
They feel
springst
awkward.
von
They feel as if
Falschen,
they don't
glaub
have
ich.
the privilege or the voice or the words. How do you find yourself right now in terms
Nein,
of
mache ich gar nicht.
interacting with people
Doch.
when they want to talk to you about
Scheiße, mache ich echt.
what's going on in this country right now?
Well, first of all, picking and choosing whether you want to be
Die hat
silent
die ganze
or
Zeit von
not,
dem hier geredet.
race, that's a privilege in and of itself. But no, I mean, I try to just do my best to
Wer bist du jetzt?
listen to the black people around me and the educated black people I have in my life. So I do my best
Ich hasse
to
dich.
not act like I have all the answers for everything, especially in a culture that I'm
Wird im
not from.
Stream sein.
But that's why when we decided to raise the money
Guck mal, die haben gleich
for
beide die
Black
gleiche
Lives Matter
Kombo.
organizations, we when we raised 500,000, we got on the phone with some of the women who started Black Lives Matter. I got on the phone with Tamika Mallory. I was on the phone with Karen Civil and
Ich
talking
dachte,
Hallo?
to
das ist
my
von
friends to make
hier.
sure the
Hallo?
money went to like the correct places, and people who really need it. It's just about listening. That's all. It's about listening.
Let's talk about that for a moment because
bist
the way
Oh.
I think of activism, for me, it looks very differently. It's not necessarily just protesting on the front lines. I think that's great.
Oh,
What about being an activist in the way in which you have decided to be one? What inspired you? What did it
Fick
look
dich.
like? You said you raised money for Black Lives Matter. What did you do?
Mhm.
Walk us through everything that you did and how you find yourself in this moment right now.
So for me, it was 3 years ago. I had like a string of festivals, and I decided that I was gonna wear T-shirts with a message on them because I figured, what better, what better time to use a platform than in front of a bunch of people. So one of the T-shirts I wore was, if you want to change the system, speak up. White silence is pro-racism, the whole thing. And it didn't really like it kind of got swept
Du
under the rug back
Retard, ganz
then.
ehrlich.
But you know, when all this stuff started happening again, and it's been happening, the police brutality against innocent black people, I was like, man, I'm not the biggest artist in
Ich
the
hasse
world, and I
dich.
certainly don't have the most white fans in the world, but I got a good amount of people that I can definitely mobilize and turn into some money. And I know they're down for the cause because it's merch, it's a good thing.
Mano.
And I've always been outspoken anyway. You know? So how am I going to be in black culture and not be outspoken about racism?
And then I got to ask you this, because you grew up in Atlanta, so that gives you a heads up, depending for so many people, because you're in the crux of that beautiful black city where there's so many wonderful black leaders, home of so much great music and things that speak to our
Du bist
culture
so
right
anstrengend,
now.
ne?
And we are really, really getting our word out, especially with this platform today, and saying that we must use our voice to vote. Talk to me about what
Kannst gerne die ganze Zeit
importance of
machen, man
voting
juckt
for
mich nicht.
you in this upcoming election.
Ja,
Yeah,
X-Men,
so
spring mal die
you
ganze
know,
Zeit vor dem
full
Typ, also
transparency,
vor
I had never voted before. Ever.
Hört
Spring mal
doch
die ganze Zeit
auf,
vor
ganz
Tyler.
And
ehrlich.
because you know, I was one of those people who was like, my vote doesn't matter, and you know, and I don't know, maybe it's because I was younger, maybe it's because I really thought that, or I don't know, but I
Ach,
just think
schade.
that it's got to, you know, now this is a bit of a privilege to say it's got to a breaking point for me, because obviously it's been past the breaking point for black people, but
Mann,
I
seid ihr
think
irgendwie
that
dumm oder
as a
so?
whole,
Der andere
young,
Typ
you know,
macht
the young
mit.
people need to get out and vote, because we're the ones that never show up. You know what I mean? We never show up
Ich
to
hasse
vote.
ja euch,
But
ganz
you know,
ehrlich.
we're the future, so it's like, look, we gotta go out there and vote, and then whatever happens, but at least we did
Ich will
our part.
mitkommen.
You know, you gotta do your
You know,
part.
you're very candid in saying that you just decided to vote. And I think there's a
Oh,
beautiful irony in the fact that you have your fans
oh
saying
Mann,
because
bin
of
ich
you
zu
I'm
fett oder
voting.
was?
Right.
And there's something beautiful about that. But I want to know why now for you. Why in this moment is it
Oh,
important for you
Junge,
to vote?
Sven.
And what hit your spirit to say, yes, this is the time to do it?
Honestly, because I think that George Floyd really woke up a lot of people who, including myself, who I was vocal and outspoken about racism. I put it in my lyrics. I put it on T-shirts. I would talk about it in interviews. Like, you know, I was vocal about it. But that video in that moment, I think me along with a lot of other people just kind of was like, all right, like words are simply not enough anymore. We gotta do something, whether it's raising money, whether it's voting.
An deiner
or
Stelle
all
würde ich
the
da
above.
runtergehen.
Like, we gotta do something, you know, and I'm ashamed that it took that for me to be like, I need to raise money and I need to vote. You know, it's a shame, and I don't know. I guess it snapped a bunch of people out of it. You know, and even if you were vocal and whatnot, it's time to actually put your money where your mouth is. It's time to go vote. You know, it's time to just stop talking about it and be about it. You know, and it's been time for that, but like I said, you know, I'm ashamed that it took me this long to actually really be about it.
Oh, Junge,
But
wollen wir immer noch gucken?
I'm here now.
So Russ,
Ich guck
we all know
Sender.
that this is going to be your first time voting. Tell me what that
Yeah.
experience is going to be like for
Yeah.
you in terms of what you're excited about.
I think you know what it's gonna do for me. It's gonna let me know that
Bei mir
I'm
hast du gar nicht so ein Fortnite-Dings.
contributing to something bigger than myself, and I'm actually putting my money where my mouth is, and I'm being about it. Because, you know, for so long, and I know I'm not alone with this, but you know,
Das Ding ist, du
standing on
guckst
the
bei
outside
Juwenjos
and just
Discord, also
screaming
hast du
about
und
this
Juwenjo
and
drin,
that, and
Digga.
this should change, and this,
Ich komm gleich.
it's like, all right, but did you vote? You know, and so I'm, you know, I know it's gonna feel good to know that I played a small role, you know, and that's the problem. I think the mentality of like my vote doesn't matter needs to be changed to my vote, albeit small, does matter. It's a role I'm playing, and if I play my part and you play your part, and he and she plays their part, then we make a difference. But you know, it'll feel. I have a feeling it's gonna it's gonna feel very, very bigger than me. I mean, I think when you realize that giving actually feels better than receiving, that's when you start wanting to do your part and contribute. So, voting is an easy way to give. You know.
Yeah. To whom much is given, much is required, and you have been given a huge platform, and we are so grateful for you, Russ. Philanthropist, artist, community activist, first-time voter. We appreciate you for doing this, okay?
Thank you. I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, la la.
So, cities like Atlanta and Chicago have been at the forefront of the discussions, especially now in this country when we're talking about COVID-19 and systemic racism, as well as police brutality and what we can do in this country. Again, we're continuing our conversation, letting you know that your voice is your vote and your vote is your voice. We can change where we are in this country. Currently, I'd like to welcome in Chicago Cubs right fielder Jason Hayward. I appreciate you. I brought in Atlanta and Chicago because I know you grew up in the metropolitan area of Atlanta, more specific entire time in terms of what our country's been experiencing. Let's look at the past month and a half, if you will. What has been the hardest thing for you to deal with?
The hardest thing for me to deal with, Carrie, this last month has just been going from the virus shutting everything down to us being called to action. We've had multiple police brutality situations. We've had people protesting, wanting to get the message out. But I really realized that I need to be a part of the positive message and make sure that doesn't get lost in all the chaos going on, for people to actually hear from a reasonable, respectable person who cares about everyone involved.
Involved, which leads us to More Than a Vote. It is a beautiful collective of Black athletes and artists who are a part of that. Talk to me about why that's important for you right now on this being part of that collective.
To me personally, it's important to be a part of that because
Die startet in 15 Minuten.
use baseball and my craft as an excuse to not get more involved in voting. But I can't any longer use baseball and work as an excuse not to get educated, and not also to show people, like, at any moment in time, any walk of life, we can make a difference.
So tell me in your words, what does activism look like for you?
In my words, it looks like LeBron James, the biggest athlete right now on the planet, speaking up and for everyone. And I think for the first time,
Styler, ich sollte sagen, dass X-Men Deluxe, also X-Men halt, mit 2 Accounts deinen Stream schaut. Einmal auf dem Handy und auf PC.
Okay, cool.
You said something I thought was so key, because covering sports for so long, I know that it's tough for Black players specifically in Major League Baseball to talk about how they feel. Adam Jones did it in a very eloquent way early on, but there are very few that are vocal. You said you all were afraid. Why use that word? Why were you afraid?
You was afraid because in 2019 there were 68 of us total, and there are 38 teams. There's 25-man roster on each team. There's a 40-man roster, which is on each team as well. And there are many of us. So we're outnumbered in that sense, but not always in a negative way when it comes to our teammates and our clubhouses. But to get to this point, you have to move a certain way. You got to be careful what you say. You can't ruffle feathers. You can't come off in any way. Much like other Black entertainers, much like yourself, probably having to live through life every day. But to get to the highest level, you got to button up. You got to be seen and not heard. So baseball is like it was time for us to try and speak up and make a difference. And
hast du ein Handy oder hast du nur ein iPad?
That is a button.
Also auch wie iPad.
Seen, but not heard. That is an expression that a lot of Black folks can relate to in whatever aspect of professionalism that they experience, especially if they don't work for themselves. They just feel that. That is also a socialization that we have as Black folks, especially, like you said, if you want to get to the higher level. And for so long, I felt a bubble right underneath the surface that so many of us who were in whatever positions we were, who had platforms, were tired of pretending and looking the other way, and spending so much time making others comfortable while we were uncomfortable.
Oh, das ist irgendwie geil.
That this is the type of movement that is sustainable, or is it just for a time?
No, it takes everyone joining in on the conversation, and right now I feel like more than ever, there is little things as possible to distract from bigger issue. And we saw on draft day, we saw our president, Theo Epstein, holding up the sign saying Black Lives Matter and wanting to include the rest of MLB in that. But now we're having those conversations as well. So I definitely think this is sustainable, and it's not always just going to be the popular thing to do. This is something that people want to get right because they know we care.
Jason, you said it's sustainable, that what you're seeing, especially with your colleagues in baseball, this can be something where you're feeling more comfortable, feeling more safe to share how you feel about social injustice and police brutality. What are you doing right now in this moment with your platform to help change how we look at voting and how to educate the culture and the community about voting?
Well, first, what I'm doing, Carrie, is joining up with More Than a Vote and joining up with other athletes and entertainers to get that message out and use our platform in that sense as a group. And try to create a brand with this to make it something that's not just about the election, to make sure that it's about people getting educated for years to come and figure out where to vote and how to vote.
Guck mal, hier ist ein Quadrennen, hier ist ein Quadrennen, steht hier.
And influence different areas of people. And as a baseball player, as a black baseball player,
Komm, wir versuchen.
I feel like now, like we talked
Wir gehen da
about,
mal hin.
it's finally the time to show people that you can use your voice in this profession. You don't have to be afraid. And to me, that can help someone, help a kid growing up. He can see me, he can see other guys that were in the video we posted saying, hey, this is what they're standing for. They're speaking up for these things, and it's okay to want to play baseball. It's not lame. It's not something I have to be as afraid of as I was before.
Sieht nicht so gut aus hier. Also hier sind keine.
I have a younger brother as well. He's 24. He also plays baseball. So I've got to lead by example. I can't just always come up with a good answer that sounds good on TV. When I get asked a question on, what do we need to do to make changes? I'm joining up here to make sure that I take action.
Voll ein großes Ding hier.
For one,
Was ist das hier?
in Atlanta, they're on the move. Or when you want to try to make a vote and try and cast your vote, you have to do it by mail. You have to sign up for the absentee ballot. Then you have to get another ballot and return it. They have to send it back to you. Well, for me personally, they didn't send that back until it was too late. Right? We didn't get it in the mail to the address that's an Atlanta address at my parents' house. We didn't get that in the mail until it was too late. And then from other friends and family that are still in Georgia right now, I just hear about them being held in lines too long and trying to get off work. And we know how it is for any family, but let alone a black family in the city, in the suburbs, trying to take care of
Lass mal nochmal nicht gleich machen, aber du fängst dann als erstes an, weil sonst blocken wir uns die ganze Zeit.
It's like, oh, this is not going to happen today, right? And so I saw, Mayor Keisha Bottoms, reach out via social media to people and say, hey, I'm going to address these issues right now. I need y'all to stay in line to cast your votes. Keep hanging in there. So to me in Georgia, that's what that looks like.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting that you even bring that up because there have been all these images specifically from Georgia because that's such a battleground where you see people, especially when it came to the primaries, doing whatever it takes. This is real suppression that you're talking about. It's been happening for decades. It's not fake. What you're saying, these examples of sending you your ballot too late after the fact or shutting down the polls at 6 o'clock while people still are in line, that's a real life issue. There needs to be some type of change. And I think that what we're doing right now is fair. But the idea of voter suppression, do you think that is well known, especially with folks, within the generation, your generation?
I think it's known in our communities.
Ich hab gar nichts.
I don't think it's spoke on enough. I don't think there's been enough light.
Ich mach nochmal kurz.
Bring it to light. Let people hear about it. Let people learn about what that
Dann schalt und stumm.
Get more people to say, okay, look, this is gonna happen.
Und dann, wenn die Show zu Ende ist, dann
Jason, everybody knows, or feels as if everyone knows that the time is now. America's paying attention to us. We have their eyes, we have their ears. If you look toward the future, what are you most excited about in terms of seeing a change?
I'm excited about how fast the word is traveling. The word is being spread right now. The biggest athletes, the biggest icons, biggest entertainers are doing their part. But I'm also seeing people out there on the streets doing their part. When so many things got lost, could have very easily got in the commotion when it came to protests, and you saw rioting, you saw looting. People still stood their ground, and people still went out there and said, look, we're doing this for the right reasons. We're going to come together. We're going to use drones. We're going to use social medias. I feel like this is a new wave of getting things done the right way and just spreading the message.
You're right about that. And you're right. People are spreading the word unapologetically. We out here. We doubling down. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Right.
Yeah, la la.
Hey everybody, I am so excited to welcome a friend, a brother, family member, if you will, former colleague, NBA great, sports analyst, philanthropist. He does it all, and he's here to give us his time and his platform to talk about something that is so important, that is voting. Everybody, welcome Jalen Rose to We the People. Talk to me about how important it is for the people who know you and love you and look up to you. Why is it so important that you use your platform to talk about voting?
Initially, we have to get past the stigma of the mental systemic racism that comes with the presidential race, governors, mayors, senators, judges. We've been conditioned to believe that our vote does not matter. So usually when we looked up at all of those races and people that were running, not only did they not look like us, we didn't believe they were there to represent our best interests. So therefore, as a collective, we didn't mobilize until Barack Obama, and we felt a sense of hope that finally our country is going to do something that we felt would never happen in our lifetime. And I remember being at the inauguration in 2008. I made sure I was there. And we voted. In 2016, we didn't vote, Carrie. We didn't vote. And so many people try to make this political. This is not political. Me telling somebody to vote is like telling somebody to pay taxes. So that's one, getting over the stigma of nobody is going to represent our best interest. And then number two, the reality is that the person that gets the most votes doesn't necessarily win the presidency. That's uncomfortable right there, because that's actually what took place in 2016. The Electoral College chose the president. And if you put all of their pictures up, I'm pretty sure they look a lot more like each other than they look like you and I. How about that? And then the third thing, especially in urban environments, oh man, they create barriers for us, Carrie. It's like you got to jump over the fence, you got to run past the dog, you got to jump on the hood of the car. The lines is 5 hours long. You get up to the poll and they don't work. Elderly people working in the city, while they got the young people who understand technology working in the suburbs. Like, these are all systematic things that try to discourage us from voting. And then finally, we don't have a day off to vote. We need to work. So we don't get a day off. It's going to be a full day, and I got to work to pay my bills. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to mail in vote. And you know what you want people to realize? That counts too. So your vote will be counted if you're able to mail it in. So those are a few things that I hope that we can do and mobilize. And shout to LeBron and his team. Shout to you and everybody involved. We will make a difference.
Well, let's talk about more than a vote. There is a Black collective of athletes, of artists coming together and saying voter suppression is a real deal, especially in the Black community. When you just talked about, I got to work, so I can't go vote. And then when we do get in the booth, just in case we don't have to work, do we know who we're voting for? Not only do we have to vote, we got to be educated. And it's not always even about the man who's in office or the woman who's in office for president. It's about your local elections. It's about the people who are your DAs, your state DAs, like the people who actually make change in your community, who will change police brutality, who will make sure that your community is taken care of, who will defund police and hope that they can help you in stopping police brutality. So talk to me about why you decided to be a part of More Than a Vote and what it actually means.
Well, it means a lot to be involved with such an impressive collective, as you mentioned. And I said this multiple times, and I know it can be uncomfortable when I say it, but a lot of times we have to get to the root of the issue before we find a solution. And the quote was, I wish America loved Black people as much as it loves Black culture. And this collective, by the way, represents in a lot of ways what's encouraging, but also sometimes disappointing about our role as Black people in America. Because we were brought here as labor and to entertain. And we use those vehicles to get paid and move to the suburbs and be the idols of white kids. And so now that we have this collective, I would say sports and entertainment represent the most powerful group of Black men in the United States. I'm talking about money, power, celebrity, the ability to mobilize, community involvement, their leadership, their intellect. And so to have all of us pull it in the same direction at the same time for anything that we're passionate about is going to be a difference maker, but it's definitely going to be a difference maker in the 2020 vote, because we're going to make sure we inform everybody that they can let their voice be heard, and failure is not an option.
Jalen, what does voter suppression look like to you?
A perfect example took place recently, Carrie, in Kentucky. It was 6 p.m. at night, and so many people were standing in line enthusiastic to vote. And you know what they did? Locked the doors. And you know what the people did? They continued to bang on the doors, continued to bang on the windows. They continued to let it be known they were not going to leave the premises until they got a chance to vote. And you know what ended up happening? They opened those doors and allowed those people to vote. So do not be discouraged. These barriers show you that it matters, and we're here to help you break through them. The same thing with our platforms and voices, Carrie, because you know what's going to happen. At some point, Breonna Taylor is not going to be trending anymore.
Ey.
People are not going to be protesting.
Party startet jetzt gleich.
But
Was ist die
it's still
Party?
up to
Ja,
us
ich weiß auch nicht.
making sure that our voices get heard, and this is one way to do so.
Right, and that is a form of being activated, being an
Bereit
activist.
machen.
It doesn't
Wollen
have
wir
to
bereit
be
machen?
protesting. It doesn't have to look
Ja,
like
das
Leute,
machen
macht
wir.
mal bereit.
traditionally activism.
Leute,
looks like.
Ich
wir
hab's
gucken
ready.
uns mal
It's
diese
that simple.
Comic-Party
We
da.
now have to understand, like, this is a critical mass moment for this movement to continue
X-Men,
to
mach mal
hold
bereit.
up
Du musst
as
bereit
much
machen.
steam for as long as possible. And
Was
that's
ist
what
das?
this collection
Ja.
hopefully allows.
Kommen wir jetzt einfach in eine
that
Party
situation
Royale
to
Runde
happen.
oder so?
Jalen, in
Weiß
today's
nicht.
age of technology, it
Weil
should
das
be
dann,
easier to vote.
ich denke
No doubt,
schon,
it's
oder?
like,
Oder?
we call these devices smartphones.
Party
Yeah, I can't
startet.
have fun.
Also muss ja.
All of the things
Warten
that
auf
we do
Server
in
bei
our
mir.
lives are
Spielersuche.
all of these barriers are things
Nächstes
that
Match
people
Ja, wir sind einfach im Party Royale, denke ich.
Leute, was passiert hier?
Warten auf Server.
Ich denke, wir sind einfach im.
Dummheiten bitte, Styler.
Ich hab dich entstummt.
Ja. Sind einfach.
Ich hab jeden entstummt.
Dummheiten bitte, Styler.
Ey, ich kann jetzt nix deinen Screen anschauen, aber kannst du bitte das ausmachen, Digga? Ich höre mich die ganze Zeit doppeltes Cringe.
Kannst du bitte
Styler,
nicht zum
Valorant?
Styler?
Kennst du Valorant?
Berat, soll ich die stumm? Ah ja, stimmt ja.
Kennst du Valorant, Styler?
Ja.
Gibt es für die PlayStation? Nee, ne?
Leider nicht.
Weil ich zock das auf PC und
So,
das ist
jetzt
halt.
wüsste ich aber mal gerne, welche Party.
Ja, neue Party Royale Dings. Einfach.
Erstmal zur Hauptbühne.
Also auf der normalen Bühne ist nix, aber da wird gezeigt, dass man auf die Hauptbühne soll. Also. Das
Nee, da
da
soll man
wahrscheinlich-
wieder hinten hin. Hier hin sollte man.
Das ist die Black Lives Matter Dings noch. Das sehe ich
Meinst
doch.
du? Lass mal hin.
Das ist da, ich seh's doch. Das ist dieses Interview noch.
Hä, warum mussten wir jetzt ein neuer Dings starten?
That's why more than a vote is so very important, so we can make sure everybody participates and gives themselves an opportunity to let their voice be heard.
I think it's interesting because you talked about black men being very powerful in the U.S. if they're athletes and entertainers.
Was bringt
Because
das
for
jetzt?
so long, those have been the only.
Ich glaube, wir müssen eine neue Party starten, weil die Zeit abgelaufen ist vom Party
The
Royale
NBA
Modus.
season comes back. What are your feelings on the season coming
Ja,
back?
wollen wir einfach halt zu normal spielen oder wollen wir
I
weiter
think you'll
Party
see
Royale?
players are challenging the
Ich hätte echt
establishment
gesagt, Bock auf normal, ich bin
You're
geliebt.
going to see them saying, okay, if you have all of these marketing and promotional deals, how many of them are with minorities? How many people are you employing in NBA? What about certain
Leute, Frage,
teams? Who
wollt
do you
ihr
have
normales
as a
Gameplay
minority
sehen oder
voter?
wollt ihr weiter
Or
dieses
what about the candidates that you
Black Lives
have
Matter
for
angucken?
positions of power? have proven
Frage an den Chat.
Creative, echtes Spiel oder Black Lives Matter Scheiße, Junge, entscheidet euch doch.
They're now the dog, not the tail.
Ihr habt jetzt die Wahl,
So if
Black
they
Lives
decide
Matter.
not to play, some of the
Guck mal.
and conversations
Genau.
have taken place in sports that weren't during the game.
Schreib's mal in die
Colin
Kommentare.
Kaepernick was before the game. The Ali Summit was a press conference.
Entweder
So
gucken
they
wir uns das
could
weiter an.
mobilize if they chose to. But
Spielen
when,
Creative
if you do
oder
play,
spielen normal.
challenge the league. Black Lives Matter on the jerseys. Continue to make sure that every time people are watching the game, they're also seeing the movement
Ja,
happen.
zwei Leute, die mir
Jalen, I
zugucken.
appreciate
Einfach
you
mal
because you are
schreiben.
always entertaining and
Ja.
informative at once. I really, truly am looking
Ja.
forward to the NBA season. Thank you for
Nee, ich guck
with
grad
more
keinen
than
Film von
both
ihm.
because your voice, your platform, all of it is needed, my friend. Be safe, okay?
Ja,
My love and
X-Men schaut den
appreciation
Stream
all
nur.
the way, always.
Da mal
X-Men, was
reinschreiben.
sagst du? Was wollen wir machen?
Love you too.
Every conversation that we had today, I hope was helpful.
Einfach mal in den Chat
I am
schreiben.
so grateful to everyone.
Ja,
who
schreib
came
einfach
with
in den
me
Chat, was du
to
machen
talk
willst.
about what's going on in our culture and how we need to change. Huge shout out to Jalen Rose, Bunby, Jason Maywood,
Alles scheint zu
Yvonne
Ende zu
Orji,
sein.
and Russ. Their words were
Ey,
inspiring, but
Styler,
also,
also er kann den
I
nicht
hope your phone
schreiben.
is full with all the information that we've been able to place.
Kannst du
Okay,
jetzt
es
eigentlich auch...
ist,
Again, you need to
es
check out
ist
these
glaube ich, vorbei.
resources
Ja,
because they
es
are
scheint
so
vorbei zu sein.
important because we want you to vote.
Ja,
That is your
dann
voice. It is
was wollen wir
important.
spielen? Creative
We,
oder
the
normal?
people, want you to vote. So, go to morethanavote.org.
Jetzt bin ich halt nicht mehr warm, ne?
Was wollen wir denn spielen?
Again, thank you so much for
Ich weiß
joining
es
us
nicht.
and paying
Das
attention
ist der
because
Entscheid.
this message
Ja, dann
again,
lass es
is
gleich
invaluable.
Creative
I'm
weiter.
Carrie Champion for We the People.
Du wirst verlassen, X-Men?
So, ich verlasse es auch, Leute. Wie ihr gesehen habt, das war Black Lives Matter Talkshow.
Und jetzt gönnt dem Jungen mal 50 Likes, was?
Ja, Leute, das war die Talkshow von Black Lives Matter. Ich werde jetzt aber noch ein paar Themen besprechen zum Thema meinen YouTube-Kanal. Ihr wisst ja, Leute, ich bin sehr, sehr inaktiv und das tut mir auch sehr, sehr leid. Ich weiß nicht, was ich die Tage hochladen soll. Ich habe schon viel vorproduziert, ich weiß aber nicht, was ich ob ich es hochladen soll. Ich habe Minecraft produziert, ich habe Rainbow Six Siege produziert. Meine Frage ist jetzt einfach, wollt ihr sowas sehen? Schreibt's in den Chat, schreib's in die Kommentare. Die Leute,
Warte, ich
die
muss
ich
kurz
jetzt
einen
schon-
Stream gucken und Ja schreiben.
Wie gesagt, Leute, ich habe noch viele Ideen, die ich weiß nicht, ob ihr sowas wollt. Ich werde aber auf jeden Fall die Tage wahrscheinlich ein bisschen aktiver, damit ich in den Algorithmus mal wieder reinkomme und euch ein bisschen mehr auf meinen Wege zeigen. Ich habe einen Kommentar bekommen und herzlich willkommen erstmal in meinem Stream. Ja, wollen wir. Ja gut, dann weiß ich ja Bescheid, was ich mache. Wie gesagt, Leute, ich hoffe, euch hat aber der Black Lives Matter gefallen. Leute, seid gegen Rassismus. Rassismus ist nicht toll. Am meisten auch nicht in der Corona-Zeit. Corona ist generell der größte Dreck. Ich hoffe, dass ich jetzt nicht einen Corona-Dings bekomme. Corona-Claim. Leute, wie gesagt, ich hoffe, es hat euch gefallen. Ihr wisst, ich werde ein bisschen aktiver sein. Schaut aber bitte auch mal gerne bei dem lieben Juwenjo vorbei. Bei dem lieben Lamor. Das sind 2 Kumpel von mir.
Junge,
Mal unterstützen könnt.
Digga, Mann.
Gut, dann würde ich aber sagen, war's mit dem Stream.
Ey Leute, schaut.
Bis nächstes Mal und